Those who drive ambulances find themselves under unique pressures. Racing to save lives, a driver must protect the safety of his patient while at the same time pushing his vehicle to the limit for the sake of time and speed. But a California company believes that ambulance drivers can be made better drivers and safer drivers with a unique black box device that monitors how much strain the ambulance vehicle is taking.
If you're driving along and you have to make a hard turn, the alarm goes off. Or if you make a hard left turn, it'll do the same. If you stop quick, it also makes a tone. This way it alarms the driver that he's doing something wrong.
A month after the machine is installed under the passenger seat, the data it collected is sent to Fail-Safe Driving Incorporated for evaluation. The company then tells the ambulance service where it needs to improve, even offering special ambulance driving safety courses.
This is the main reason we're putting it in. The patient would not be tossed about as much in the rear of the ambulance while riding in, say, to the hospital if the driver has learned how to control it with this computer.
Beeping, clicking, and counting, the monitor acts like an electronic tattletale. With increasingly sophisticated and expensive vehicles, some 300 ambulance companies nationwide are using similar systems to determine just how good their drivers really are. In Wichita Falls, Texas, I'm Jack Trammell reporting for NBC News. The American Council of Education has a trade magazine called Higher Education and National Affairs. This magazine says that the job market is depressed this summer and is expected to remain so for college graduates through the 1980s. But there are some points of hope, particularly for students in technical and scientific departments, and one department in particular. That field is petroleum engineering and geology. This year, the average starting salary for a graduate student in petroleum geology is over $30,000 a year. The National College Placement Council says that these students are among the highest paid college graduates ever.
The job market is a little soft at the moment, as it is nationwide, because of the current recession. But the long-term need for people either in geology, geophysics, or petroleum engineering, we expect will be excellent for years to come.
But the number of active oil rigs in the United States has dropped by 1/2. That is the sharpest decline in the nation's history. Oil associations say the domestic oil market is in deep trouble.
I expect we shall have a recovery. I don't see how things can go any other way, and therefore the field is just as desirable today as it was a year ago.
Oil has always been a tough business, seeing more than its share of ups and downs. And while keeping one eye on their studies, students are keeping their other eye on the oil industry.
I think it will turn around eventually. I'm positive. I understand, the situation, but I am positive that we need energy.
In Wichita Falls, Texas, I'm Jack Trammell reporting for NBC News. According to the United States Census Bureau, about 1/5 of all new single-family homes in the nation are being built by their owners. High building costs are forcing many to learn how to use a hammer and saw for the first time. But rather than start from scratch, hard-pressed consumers are turning to an alternative called kit houses, which start as low as $10,000. Like giant Tinker Toy sets, such packages include everything from basic lumber to linoleum, from carpeting to even the kitchen sink. And they seem to attract people who don't normally have house-building experience. But kit home sales aren't brisk. This 8th largest lumber chain in the United States has sold some 3,000 kits in the past 2 years, but they could have sold more.
Money's tight right now, plus the fact that banks are real strict about who they loan money to on a builder-type loan. They would like to have someone with previous history in some type of transaction like that, and most people just don't have that history.
Working evenings and weekends, Robert Dodd has been putting his house kit together since this spring. With the help of his brother-in-law, Dodd believes he can save about half the money he would have spent for a home already built. And he plans to take the money he saves on the outside and put it into some of the better things on the inside.
Even the best are going to make mistakes. You're going to have to start from scratch, and you're going to do things and have to start over.
So you must decide if the money spent or saved is worth the quality you get when you build from a kit or buy a home built by conventional builders. Near Dean, Texas, I'm Jack Trammell reporting for NBC News. It was a scene painfully familiar to Wichita Falls residents. Following the strike of several tornadoes yesterday evening, Jackson County residents climbed out of their shelters and hiding places to find an 8-mile path of destruction. Sheriff, police, and eyewitness accounts show that as many as 30 separate twisters touched down in northeastern Jackson County, all of them starting near Altus Air Force Base.
We were dispatched to the base, the Altus Air Force Base, and we seen the tornado off to the northeast of us. And it was on the ground, and there was a lot of debris flying.
Minutes later, perhaps that tornado and others as well sliced northeasterly from the base into open countryside, destroying 7 homes and damaging 30 others.
Well, it's totally destroyed. There's nothing left. No little bitty things left here. They're lucky to be alive, I tell you.
Basically, what I saw was a compressed type funnel cloud. And when I saw it, I headed for the safest place in the house, which was in our hallway.
14 people were admitted to Jackson Memorial Hospital with fractures and lacerations, but 2 others were not as fortunate. 25-year-old Rhonda Price and her niece, 4-year-old Susan Michelle Cook, were killed when high winds rolled their mobile home over. This morning, county-wide, homeowners were trying to see just how much their lives had changed and how much they could salvage. Altus Air Force Base suffered the most damage, with tornadic winds virtually destroying several barrack buildings and heavily damaging hangars and service buildings, and turning parking lots into junkyards. Most of the 30 airmen who were injured were here when the tornado struck. Base officials say that there was little warning.
Had a total of 49 buildings hit. 12 were severely damaged, maybe totally.
Structural damage alone at the base is estimated so far at $12.5 million. But most expensive may be the repairs on 11 stricken transport jets, including 3 400,000-pound C-5A transports that were rotated around by high winds like weather vanes. The cleanup at the base continues, and most of the base has electricity again. Airmen currently without a home are staying in temporary housing off base. Though skies remain murky over Altus Air Force Base, there is one point that is clear. It will be many weeks before the base completes its cleanup. At Altus Air Force Base, I'm Jack Trammell, News Center 3.
This is KFTX-TV in Wichita Falls. News events that shape North Texas and southern Oklahoma. This is News Center 3.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. At this hour, virtually all of Chickasha, Oklahoma is without water. Chickasha has been without its water supply since yesterday when a line burst between the water plant and the city's 2 water supply lakes. That broken pipe was fixed today with a 500-pound sleeve. But even with the water flowing again, officials tell News Center 3 that it will take 3 days for city water lines from the Fort Cobb Reservoir to come back up to pressure. However, they add that by midnight tonight, most of the city's 20,000 residents will have at least some water in their homes. A proposed $500,000 school bond went down to defeat today in Henrietta, Texas. The $500,000 was to go to construction and renovation of Henrietta Elementary and Junior High School. The bond issue failed by a margin of slightly less than 3-1. 132 voted for the bond, 368 voted against, for a total of exactly 500 votes cast. Henrietta Junior High School principal Eddie Shearer told News Center 3 that he was, quote, hurt, end quote, by the bond's failure. He said he did not know what course of action the Henrietta School Board would take next. If the bond had passed, it would have been a 15% increase in ad valorem taxes. 11 weeks after the Israelis invaded Lebanon, the Palestinian Liberation Organization is leaving Beirut. Some 450 guerrillas led for Cyprus today, a stop on the way to Jordan and Iraq. NBC's Vic Aiken reports that the total migration will take 2 weeks.
The French troop carrier Dive, escorted by an Israeli gunboat, eased down the Lebanese coast. Vic Aiken, NBC News, West Beirut.
The Palestinian guerrillas gathered at the Beirut Municipal Stadium. Soldiers danced and drank and said goodbye to comrades and often fired their guns into the air. The guerrillas viewed their departure as a political victory. They eventually boarded a large ferry under the watchful eyes of the French peacekeeping forces. Now, much has been said of how the PLO is leaving Beirut, but little of exactly where those thousands of PLO troops are going. Tomorrow, PLO troops will head for Iraq and Jordan. However, on Monday, PLO troops will be moving to Tunisia. On Tuesday, they'll be going to Oman and South Yemen. On Wednesday, to Syria. And on September the 2nd and 3rd, they'll be going to Algeria and Sudan. In Washington, there is a movement, a need to press the current situation, to find a permanent answer for the Palestinian question. NBC's Fred Francis reports that there are plans to make advantage of the current diplomacies.
Mideast analysts at the State Department are optimistic that though the conflict in Lebanon is ongoing, Fred Francis, NBC News at the State Department.
With the gas this balloon could hold, you could take 7,000...
Boy, have I got good news for you for tomorrow. It's going to be a nice day. We'll tell you about the rest of the United States and the world in just a moment.
Longhorn Chevrolet has your Camaro and it...
Quality protection. Ask for it.
Welcome to the weather. Welcome temperatures in Idaho. I don't know if they like hot weather and record-setting temperatures. Pocatello, Idaho is for tomorrow. Monday, fair and hot, high 97 to 100, winds light and southerly. Well, Jack, they haven't blamed it necessarily on the weather, but I understand they had a plane crash out in New Mexico today.
That's true, indeed they did. They had a plane crash, but they are not sure whether it does have anything to do with the weather. An Air Force F-4 fighter with 2 people on board crashed today during a training mission over southern New Mexico. A spokesman at Holloman Air Force Base says there were some survivors, but further details are still unavailable. This weekend, the Wichita Falls Gun and Knife Show is being held at the Downtown Activity Center. Now, besides weapons, there are many collectibles from the Old West.
Enjoy them all on More Real People.
Another terrorist bomb exploded today in Paris. This bomb killed a police bomb disposal expert and wounded 2 other officers. Authorities believe the bomb was intended for an American diplomat who was living next door to the explosion site. What is also at question, though, is who did it. An anonymous telephone caller said the outlaw terrorist group Direct Action was behind the bomb, but another call claimed the blast is the work of a Lebanese terrorist group. Police say they have never heard of them. The Mexican peso is a little stronger against the U.S. dollar today. Before Mexico devalued its peso, pesos were worth about 47 to the dollar. Last Thursday, pesos ran 130 to the dollar, but it's better today. Today, pesos are running between 80 and 100 to the dollar, and since the devaluation, prices have doubled for Mexican consumers. But it's also been a boon for Americans who shop over the border. Bankers said yesterday's agreements to delay payments of Mexico's foreign debts will help stabilize the peso. 16 Iranians who were involved in a riot at Southern Methodist University last month may be kicked out of the country. Yesterday, the 16 pleaded guilty to charges that they did not carry their alien registration cards. All have been fined $100 each for that. 14 of those arrested were involved in a riot that broke out between pro- and anti-Khomeini supporters on July the 30th. An aide to Governor Bill Clement says he thinks the governor will call a special session of the legislature to look at the unemployment problem in Texas. Record unemployment levels are costing the state millions in new unemployment payments. Now, this supply and sudden drain, has gutted the state's unemployment trust fund. In Wichita Falls, unemployment is decreasing. Unemployment in June fell to 6.3%. It was 8.4% in June. Now, that means about 1,500 more people are now working in the city. There is some good news for West Texas wheat farmers. The Agriculture Department has changed its mind. The USDA now says it will increase disaster payments to West Texas grain farmers who lost crops in 1981. The payments will be about $1 a bushel higher than first reported. Braniff Airlines says it wants permission to get rid of its pension funds. While hundreds of creditors prepare to pick over the dead airline's bones, Braniff officials say that they have more obligations than they have money to meet them. Braniff Vice President Sam Coates said Braniff has asked a federal bankruptcy judge to decide how to kill pension plans and distribute the money to vested employees. Officials insist still they're trying to reorganize and fly again. American airline pilots have a new 2-year contract. The pilots and the airline have reached an agreement, but the agreement must be approved by the union. The Dallas-based airline pilots have been working without a contract since October of last year.
There's a new wholesale of business in Texas. Call 1-800-252-TIPS and support your local Crime Stoppers program.
The Great Texas Ranch Roundup winds down, and Bill Verdon may have found another job. All the sports are coming up on page 4.
Sometime.
Bottom line price.
The second annual Texas Ranch Roundup is just finishing up out at the Wichita Mounted Patrol Arena. The top 3 ranches right now who are battling it out for first place are the Moorhead Ranch.
Besides all the cooking, riding, and the Queen contest at the Texas Ranch Roundup today, there was a special guest, Sarah Purcell of the NBC series Real People. And Sidney Bradford had a chance to visit with her as she got a taste of ranch life in Texas.
Sarah Purcell is one of the 5 co-hosts of the NBC show Real People. I'm Cindy Bradford, News Center 3.
Only on more Real People.
An independent poll says that Oklahoma Governor Nye is leading the state's gubernatorial race over 2 Republicans who want his job. Ruddock Research International did the survey. The Tulsa-based research firm also asked Oklahomans about parimutuel betting. 56% say that they would vote in favor of the betting. 34% were against it. 10% said they weren't sure. A female Soviet cosmonaut was teasingly handed an apron today while working at the Salyut 7 space station. However, Svetlana Savitskova won't be doing any cooking. She and her 2 fellow, and we might add male, cosmonauts were shown today on Soviet national television. They will be conducting scientific experiments for a week aboard the craft. One former American astronaut is not doing as well. James Irwin, who flew in the 1971 Apollo moon mission, was injured while climbing Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey. Irwin was part of an unsuccessful expedition to find any remains of Noah's Ark.
Can you name a light beer with...
So it looks as if we really don't have a good rain chance, Jack, until Wednesday night or Thursday, but temperatures are a little lower.
Well, it was definitely hot in Beirut today as the PLO continued to evacuate from Beirut. NBC is now planning a special report coming up next. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.